reading Joshua chapter 8. Start with first verse. The Lord said to Joshua, "Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged. Take the whole army with you and go up and attack Ai. For I have delivered into your hands the king of Ai, his people, his city, and his land." Skipping down to verse 9. And Joshua sent them off, and they went to the place of ambush, and lay in wait between Bethel and Ai, to the west of Ai. But Joshua spent that night with the people. Early the next morning he mustered his men, and he and the leaders of Israel marched before them to Ai. The entire force that was with him marched up and approached the city and arrived in front of it. They set up camp north of Ai, with the valley between them and the city. Joshua had taken about 5,000 men and set them in ambush between Bethel and Ai to the west of the city. They had the soldiers take up positions, all those in the camp to the north of the city and the ambush to the west of it. That night Joshua went into the valleys. And when the king of Ai saw this, he and all the men of the city hurried out early in the morning to meet Israel in battle at a certain place overlooking the Arabah, which means desert, wilderness. But he did not know that an ambush had been set against them behind the city. And Joshua and all Israel let themselves be driven back before them, and then they fled toward the desert. And all the men of Ai were called to pursue them, and they pursued Joshua and were lured away from the city. Not a man remained in Ai or Bethel who did not go after Israel. They left the city open and went in pursuit of Israel. And the Lord said to Joshua, "Hold out toward Ai the javelin that is in your hand. For into your hand I'll deliver the city." And so Joshua held out his javelin toward Ai. And as soon as he did this, the men in ambush rose quickly from a position, rushed forward, entered the city, and captured it. They quickly set it on fire. The men of Ai looked back and saw the smoke of the city rising against the sky. But they had no chance to escape in any direction, for the Israelites who had been fleeing toward the desert had turned back against their pursuers. For when Joshua and all Israel saw that the ambush had taken the city and that smoke was going up from the city, they turned around and attacked the men of Ai. The men of the ambush also came out of the city against them, so that they were caught in the middle, with Israelites on both sides. Israel cut them down, leaving neither survivors nor fugitives. But they took the king of Ai alive and brought him to Joshua. And when Israel had finished killing all the men of Ai in the fields and in the desert where they had chased them, and when every one of them had been put to the sword, all the Israelites returned to Ai and killed those who were in it. 12,000 men and women fell that day, all the people of Ai. For Joshua did not draw back the hand that held out his javelin until he destroyed all who lived in it. Ai. But Israel did carry off for themselves the livestock and plunder the city, as the Lord had instructed Joshua. So Joshua burned Ai and made it into a permanent heap of ruins, a desolate place to this day. He hung the king of Ai on a tree and left him there till evening, and at sunset he ordered him to take the body from the tree and throw it down at the entrance of the city gate. And they raised a large pile of rocks over it, which remains to this day. Lord, we thank you for the day and the opportunity to study your word. Guide us in all things. In your Son's name. All right. I'm going to take a few minutes to kind of show you some stuff. Once again, we're looking at it from Google Earth. And what I want to point out is a few things here. This is Jericho. And right in here is where Gilgal is. But basically, they have taken Jericho. They're in this area here. And in order to get up in Israel, remember my imaginary map, don't forget it. It's important. It's in your brain. We've been working on that for 20 years or more. And anyway, so what you'll find is to the west, as you leave Jericho into Israel proper, all that is highlands. Okay? It's all raised elevation out of the Jordan River, and then of course it drops off to the west to the Mediterranean Sea. All of that is rugged terrain, and it's all on a higher elevation. Right in the middle of it is the area where they basically are coming up out of the Jordan Valley into what is called the Central Highlands. You can imagine Israel broken into three parts: the central, the northern, and the southern. The central would be the area that we're dealing with here, which is basically from Jerusalem up to Shechem. Okay? And that area there is the area that basically during Jesus' time was called what? that was Judea. And basically that's the breakdown of how the territory is in general things. So here they are. They have crossed the Jordan River. As we discussed last week, the first thing they had to do was to get up on the highlands where everybody pretty much lived, where the land was good, and get up in this place. And to do that, they had to establish a foothold in the land. So the first thing they did is Jericho was the entrance to it all. We talked about how it's the crossroads for everything there. Jericho, the roads went into the mountains. Here's Jericho. If you come this way, you can see my house. Down this way, you're going toward Jerusalem. If you come up through this ravine right here, you basically come up to where Bethel is and Ai. Bethel is right here, Ai is right here. Okay, we'll zoom in on a second. The other way is not, a good road to go, but there's a ravine and a river that comes down through here, goes up into this flat, open area, these valleys and stuff that goes up to Bethel again. So the main easy way is right up through here. The less, more difficult way would be down through here. So here's what we're dealing with here, okay? So in generality, last week, they took an army of how many people? 5,000? Is it 5 or 3? 2? I don't remember. Look here last week. What? Oh yeah, actually I've got it right here. John, I forgot to do my review. But anyway, attack on Ai last week. The scouts recommended 2,000 to 3,000 men, so Joshua sent 3,000 men who were routed by the men of Ai. See, what they did is they went up this road we just talked about, 3,000 men. They just destroyed Jericho without lifting a hand. So now they're all ready to go. They come up here and they come into where Ai is at the top of the mountain, the first main city they come to deal with. The enemy struck them down, and as they fled down the hill, they killed them all the way as they were going down until they finally just abandoned and let them go. As they rushed back to Jericho. We saw how all of Israel lamented to the Lord, and we're all like, woe is me, what have we done? You know, we got into this, and now where'd you go? And the Lord reminded them that he didn't go anywhere. Who went somewhere? They did. He said, I told you what to do, and you didn't do it. And I went, what? I did it. Did you do it? Yep. 1.5 million people, or however many it was, said, we did it. What's the problem? One person kept his mouth shut because he knew good well he didn't. One out of that whole group. So we saw that because of the one had taken something that was devoted to God, which he called lying and stealing, because it belonged to God, that the whole group of God's people paid the penalty. We looked at that last week, and because of that, they rooted them out, found out who it was, and they destroyed or devoted Achan and all the things that he had taken in his family to God. They destroyed them and killed them. And when they did, what did they do on top of it? They piled a bunch of stones. So now, here we are back here at Gilgal, or in that city, we got one pile of stones that says, yay, God delivered us across the river. And another pile of stones that says, don't mess with God. When he tells you to do something, what are you supposed to do? And if you don't, this is what will happen. Okay, so now we got 2 piles of stones there in this area, not including the one in the water. So we got 2 piles of stones to remind them of 2 different things. So that brings us up to where we are today. They have another monument set up there. So here we are with this. Now, before I get into that, let me look through some pictures and stuff here. Okay. This is a map that's similar. It's based on one location of Ai that has pretty much been disproven now, but it's the traditional one. You know how that was the traditional one. The problem is it was destroyed several hundred years before Joshua got there, which causes problems, and so they start saying Joshua wasn't there. The other thing is the attack would be from the south. What does the Bible say the attack was from? The main body of the army, we just read it, came from the north. So if they came from the north, how can they come from the south? We're making up things. If you're going to try to go by the Bible, then there must be a different explanation. Well, there is. If you go just about a quarter mile, half a mile west, they found it. What appears to fit the description, and I'll show you that in a second. But anyway, basically what happens is the main army comes up out of Jericho, the way we said, comes around and comes in here and attacks Ai. They lose, they run back. Now, we get to today's plan. Today's plan, but after they've done this, Joshua is told to have a group of 30,000 men go up the day before. They're to go up there as an ambush. They take this route. Don't pay any attention to these words because they're based on the other attack. But it's the same basic thing. So they come right along through here. Can you see it? Yeah. Come up through this, much more difficult travel. Come up over here, and then they lie in wait on the west of Ai. While they're laying, which is where they said, between Bethel and Ai. The Bible says, they lay there. Then the main body comes up the next day with Joshua, comes up through this area here to the Ai and comes in right here on the north of it and camps on the hill across from it. Same approach. The people see them coming up just like they had a few days before, except now they got a larger force. So they see them coming up here. All right? This here is if you're on Ai looking to the north. This is what you see to the northeast, actually. Back toward the desert. Remember they fled toward the wilderness, the desert? This is it. It's going back toward down that ravine that they came out of the Jordan River. This is Ai, the one that they found today. On this hill, they found all these ruins that are in this particular location, and it looks like that. The Bible says, even at that day, it was in ruins to that day. Okay? Alright. Let's go to the photos. Alright, here we are at Jericho. See these large ravines right up here? This is the main way that you would go up to the top of Ai, right here. This is looking to the north and west from Jericho. So you would go up here and through that ravine. It's a river that comes down, and all the watershed comes down through there to get there. Alright? This is toward the south, looking from Jericho, the southwest. This is the road actually to Jerusalem. This is how you would go if you were going down to Jerusalem. What they were going to do is go straight up to the west, go to the middle, and if you read through Joshua at any time in the past, which we have if you were in class here, whatever, they came in, went into the west. They come up the Central Highlands, they take that territory, then they go to the south, Jerusalem and south, and then they go to the north. And they establish the land of Canaan up in the highlands, and that's when they divide it all up. They haven't conquered it all, but that's what they basically put together. So here we are looking to the south. Alright, there's our map again. This here, let's see if I can zoom this in. This is actually an aerial view looking from the east to the west. Okay? Looking from toward Bethel. Right here, what you see is this here would be the mount that Ai is on. The battle and everything would take place in this valley, and on this side would be Israel coming up through this valley from the north. Come in here and the east. Actually, this is a mound right here, so it comes in from here. And over here you find Bethel. This is where Bethel is. And the modern Bethel is what you see out over the hills there. Alright? Next picture. This is what it looks like from the north. Aerial view from the north. This is Ai right here. This is the valley here, and this valley comes in over here where the children of Israel would come in from the north and the east. They would camp on the side of this hill because that's where you start a battle, preferably from the high spot. And then look over here to the west. Bethel's over here. See this deep ravine that you can't mass an army to go up? Guess why that creek, or that ravine goes back around and down the hard way into Jericho. So the night before, they come up here and they hide in this ravine. Anybody ever been to Lookout Mountain and seen the battle between the clouds? Do you remember how when you're on the Lookout Valley side, you look in the mountains up here, and then I think it's Lookout Creek, right here, and they went up the creek, straight up that incline right there, into the clouds that could see it. It would be like that. It was just steep and straight up through and so you couldn't hardly see what was coming. And that's where they went. And they hid here. Bethel's over here. They hid here, and then we find the children of Israel would charge down this hill. They would come racing out from the advantage now that they're down in the valley. And Israel would do exactly what they did last time. They would retreat, and as they retreated, they chased them. And then the ambush would come out of here, climb the mountain, set the city on fire. Part of the ambush, only 5,000 of them. When they turned to come back, when they saw it was on fire, then the rest of the army is here to cut off anybody from going to Bethel. The others up here, and Joshua's main force is here. And then we read what happened there. That's just kind of a picture showing what all took place there. Let me see if there's another picture here. No. All right, let's get back to this. All right, so here we are. So we start zooming in, and we see this area. They would come in on this highway, 449. I don't think it was paved at that time. I know they didn't have any buses or army transports. Sorry, they just had to walk. But they come up through here and then down through this valley over into this area here. Right here in the center, I've got this center, is where we're going to find Ai. Traditional Ai is over here, with the valley on the south. And that's one the archaeologists say, Joshua didn't do it because it's the wrong time. No, it's the wrong time, it's in the wrong spot. Right here is where it is. Baton, modern Bethel is over here. This is ancient Bethel right here. All this valley here. And we got all this valley right here that they came up. The advance troops did, and this is where you will find that Joshua's troops came down through here. Here's the ridge that we saw on the other side. And the valley here. Okay? Zoom in. All right. All right. This is where 3D, but you can kind of see right here. You can see that valley? There it is. That would have come in there. All right. I guess that's kind of give you an idea of the terrain. See how desert looking this is out this way? That's the way that came in. All right. So when we look at this and we start looking at it, the second battle of Ai took place. We find that they sent up a troop of how many men? 30,000. The first attack was with 3,000. They set up an ambush group that came up the night before of 30,000 men. Some people would like to make a big discussion about it because later on it's going to say 5,000 people climbed the mountain and attacked. Well, that doesn't mean that there's a discrepancy in there just because it says 30. They said 30,000 up there. It just means they sent 5,000 in the city out of the 30, which is exactly what they did. The other thing to remember is, to the west of there is the town of Bethel. Bethel was a fortified city as well. And the two must be close. They're only 1.5 miles apart. They were apparently cooperative in effort, which may be what surprised the Israelites the first time, is they may have had a lot more men. You see how many men came out of Ai to attack them. And they were all the men of Ai and Bethel. So all the armies from Bethel had come over there to join forces with them, as it happened before. Get these kings and our armies together, because these Israelites, just look what they did to Jericho. Let's get all our forces together if we're going to defeat them. So 30,000 men are set up the day before. They camp in this ravine that we talked about, which is located right here to the west of the city. And they camp in this between Bethel. Joshua takes his main army, waits the night, spends the night, and then comes up the next day. When he comes up, he brings the entire army from this direction, and they come around probably from here or here, either way, to face this, because at one point there's even reference to them heading toward the east, which basically they're going north and then back east to get to Jericho, as you saw on the original map. So here they are, they bring them up, they come on the camp on the across the valley from the main gate on the north side of the city, and they spend the night. The next day we find that Joshua attacks them from the north, just as he did in the previous attack. That's the thing to remember. This is what happened the last time. So now Ai is seeing exactly what they saw before, but instead of 3,000 men, they're seeing the entire Israelite force. We find that they do that, and it says that the Israelite army came running down this hill over here, and as they came down the hill, they went down into the valley. All right, so what does Ai's army do? Comes down after them. They're on the high ground now. So from the high ground, if you're throwing a javelin or whatever you're doing or whatever, the high ground was always what you wanted. So they come down from the high ground, they come down there, and Israel goes, ah! And they turn and run. And Ai, with all the army of Bethel, says, yay, did it again. Rerouted them. That's exactly what the term that was used in the first attack. They were routed, and they start chasing them. So as they start chasing them, they start running down the valleys here and trying to get away. And as they run to get away, then we find that God tells Joshua to do something. What does he tell him to do? Raise his spear into the air. Javelin, spear. Raise your spear into the air. As long as you hold it, sounds familiar. What does it sound like? What? Moses. Yeah, as long as you hold it up, you're going to win. You know, hold it up. And so when he holds it up, the first thing that happens is those men that had climbed up out of this steep valley to the west comes racing into the city, not an army, not a person to defend it. Open gates, helpless. They come in and set it on fire and start the battle there. The people of Ai and Bethel, realizing what has happened, turn to do what? Go defend their city. Well, as they start to go defend their city, Israel says, yeah, we're not really running. They turn around and come after them. Now, all of a sudden, we find that the armies of Ai and Bethel are trapped in the middle. And guess who has the high ground? The Israelites. On both sides. Guess who's in the valley? The enemy. Ai and Bethel. And so they go through and they start to slaughter them. We make reference to, and the Bible doesn't really say what happens. You still got 25,000 men standing around on the east side of the city in this ravine. What would you think they would do? Sit there and watch the battle? They're right here. Probably not. Bethel's over here. You got 5,000 men rushing down here. You got the whole army coming here, and they're all trapped here, or in the middle here. If you can't get to Ai, where are you going to run to? Bethel. Well, not if 25,000 men come running out of that ravine that they didn't know was there. You're cut off. So basically, they had them surrounded, trapped, whatever, based on the ambush that God had told him to do. So here we find that, and the Bible says that they destroyed and burned Ai. They killed every single person, 12,000. It's not real clear if that included the Bethel or if that was just 12,000 of the Ai. We know there was some Bethel. Bethel's army was there too and was defeated, so they were lost too. So we find that 12,000 were killed, and after they were killed, what did Israel do? What did they do to the city? Took the spoil. They killed all the people. They destroyed the city and burned it down, but not until they had removed all the plunder for themselves. Jericho, God destroyed it, and all the plunder went to God. Now, the second city that they go and attack and defeat, they destroy it, and all the plunder belongs to them by direction of God. They give it up. So here they do that. They destroy the city, and it's left in ruins and remnants all around. They had, the king was captured. They didn't kill him in the battle. They captured him. They brought him to the city gates. What did they do there? Killed him? Hung him on a tree. In the Bible, that meant hang him on a wooden spike. What they meant by hanging. Basically, they hung him for everybody to see. We have defeated him. And they left him there till sundown. At sundown, what did they do? Covered him down, threw him at the city gate, and then covered him with stones. All right, so at the city gate, as you go into this city, it's once again destroyed and burned and nothing but ruins to this day. Whenever this is written. And then at the gate, there's this big pile of rock, and under that pile of rock is the dead king. Okay? We now have another pile of rocks in Israel. And believe me, if you've been there, there's lots of piles of rocks. You don't have to look at that pile of rocks to remember. You look at any pile of rocks and goes, yeah, God is here. Or whatever you're supposed to remember, because there's rocks everywhere. But another pile of rocks. So they built up another monument. This one that says, when you do what God says, God gives you the victory and the spoils. Last one said, when you don't do what God says, you don't get the victory and you don't get the spoils. You don't do either one. So it's got two contrasting monuments here pretty much set up. All right. So we see this takes place, and then there's not much said, but he jumps straight to a place at Mount Ebal. Okay? A lot of people have problems with that because there's nothing said about Mount Ebal in the battles or anything that gets to there. Does the book of Joshua include all the battles that took place? No. What he's trying to do is write a story, not a story, but a narrative that says how God took the land through Joshua. That's all he's trying to do. And there's different things that he's trying to emphasize. The writer here, which is believed to be Joshua, is trying to emphasize in the process of that. And so he doesn't have to illustrate every single battle, just like he doesn't say that they took Bethel. Bethel was a fortified city, but where were the army? Dead. Gone. They could have walked over there and knocked on the doors. You know? There was nothing to stop them from taking Bethel shortly after this. Doesn't say it, but it's understood. As a matter of fact, this whole Central Highlands, this is the only battle that's really referenced in this particular area. Next week, when we go to the next chapter, they're going to begin moving south, dealing with some folks to the south of there, and the battles would go south, and then later would go north. So this is really the last thing that talks about this particular area here. But the next part of this chapter jumps immediately to Mount Ebal. Does anybody know where Mount Ebal is? In Israel.
In Israel, not far from Gilgal.
Not too far. Let's do this one.
Right next to Mount Gerizim.
All right. Look at this right here. Here's Jericho. Gilgal's right here. Where it says Ramallah, that's a modern city. Right in this area is where you're going to find Ai and Bethel and all that. You can't see it till you zoom in. North of there, where this is right here, is a place called Shechem. Shechem is located between two mountains. Mount Ebal, Mount Gerizim. I said it wrong, sorry. It's located right between the two of them. All right. So next thing we're going Joshua chapter 8, starting in verse 30, it says, "And Joshua built on Mount Ebal an altar to the Lord." So they're gonna get there. So all this central highlands area is defeated in the next half a verse. It doesn't describe what happens to the time they go there. But the other thing that's important is every one of these events since Joshua chapter 1 started right now are key events in the establishment and the saying where you have taken the territory. And so this is the next event that's going to take place that's basically going to say, all right, this is our land. Okay? So they go to Mount Ebal, basically go to Shechem. Let me zoom in here. What you have here is, this is Mount Ebal, this is Mount Gerizim, this is Shechem right in here. Actually, Nablus or whatever is the modern location where Shechem is. Right here between these two, this is considered Old Shechem. What you have is the two mountains come pretty much together and come together to basically what we would call a pass between the two mountains, but it's not up, it's down. The 2 foot of the mountains meet, and then there is the location of Shechem. Alright, so the Bible says he comes to there to Mount Ebal. A couple things before we get to that. First of all, what do we know about Shechem? Prior to this day. Anybody been to Shechem before? I'm not talking about us, but when Abraham came to the promised land and God said, "This will be your place," he went to a tree at Shechem. That's where he was believed, the first place he stopped in the land, and God said, "This is your land," at Shechem. A little bit later on, we find that Jacob digs a well. Where do you think he digs that well? Shechem. As a matter of fact, if I'll zoom in, you'll see it's just a hair. Well, you can see it right there. That's where they think it is today, because there's this deep well that's been there for thousands of years there, and they think that's it, because it goes way down. It's got good water. It has all along. Whether it is or isn't, I don't know. There'll be another one right beside it for all I know. But generally, this is basically where it is. So this is the place when Abraham, who is the father of all these people, came to the land and said, "This is your land." God told him, "This is your land. Look around you. This is it." Then he went from there and he lived at different places and some other things. But this is the place he started. This is the place of Jacob when he was brought back. And he dug a well there. So Abraham offered his a sacrifice there, thanking God for bringing him and all those things. But you have to go back and study that in Genesis. We're not trying to go back that far. What I'm trying to do is signify the importance of Shechem between these two mountains. So we go there, and they have taken all their central highlands, as you will. They go up to the northern part of this, to the place where it all began. The place where the father of all Israel began, Abraham, the one that was given the promise. They went to there, and they did what Moses told them to do. He said, when you get in the land, in Deuteronomy chapter 27, I think it is. Yeah. Here's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go to this mountain, and you're supposed to build an altar on Mount Ebal. Now, that's the next thing. Some say it's really Mount Gerizim, not Ebal. It's a matter of debate because every script has been rewritten by scribes or something over the centuries. At one point, there was a divergence. A group that was basically Jewish wrote Mount Ebal. A group that was basically Samaritan wrote Mount Gerizim. Many people today think it's really Mount Gerizim because it just fits archaeology better, but it doesn't matter. My point being, it could be either one. It depends on which way the person translated. So which translation you use way back when. Septuagint or whatever. Some people say that the Jewish were prejudiced against it, which we know they were, because remember the woman at the well? She said, our forefathers say we're to worship where? Mount Gerizim. Because why? Abraham started here. Abraham built an altar. Everything started here, not in Jerusalem. David did that. He was in Judah, the tribe of Judah. He was not Israelite as a whole. That's why they were making that claim to this particular place. Okay? So either way, here we are. They get here, and then we turn around and we go to we see right here in this, here's Mount Gerizim, and here's Mount Ebal. And we find that when they get there, he goes up onto the mountainside in front of all the people. He makes two stones, and he writes the law again. Says he plasters it. Well, Mount Ebal is famous for its limestone, so they plastered it there. And then he writes on there the law. He offers the burnt offerings and fellowship offerings to the Lord on the face of one of these mountains, on the side of one of these mountains. And as he does that in front of all the people, then the Bible says after that he does what else that he's told to do by Moses. He comes down in between the two, where that red dot is. That is the archaeologists have found the old Shechem area there. They comes right there between those two, and you can see them. Kind of put in 3D, the slopes here and the slopes here, the two mountains. It's right in the middle. And while he's there, half the tribes go up with their backs up to one side of the mountains, and the other side of the mountains probably up the sides of the mountains, more than likely. As they sit there, and we find that he reads off what he was told to read out of Deuteronomy 27. And Moses and the elders of Israel commanded the people, keep all the commands I give you today. When you cross the Jordan into the land the Lord your God has given you, set up some large stones and coat them with plaster. Write on them all the words of law when you cross over into the land the Lord your God has given you, a land flowing with milk and honey, just as the Lord, the God of your fathers, promised you. And when you have crossed the Jordan, set up these stones on Mount Ebal. As I command you today, and coat them with plaster, build an altar to the Lord your God. Do not use any iron tool upon them. Build the altar of the Lord your God with field stones and offer burnt offerings on it to the Lord your God. Sacrifice fellowship offerings there, eating them and rejoicing in the presence of the Lord your God. See, that's what they did, because now they have territory. Now, as a people, they have a land. And you shall write it clearly all the words of the law on these stones you set up. And the Moses and the priests who were Levites said to Israel, be silent, O Israel, and listen. You have now become the people of your Lord your God. Obey the Lord your God and follow his commands and decrees that I give you today. When you cross the Jordan, these tribes shall stand on Mount Gerizim to bless the people. Simon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Joseph, and Benjamin, and these tribes shall stand on Mount Ebal to pronounce curses. Reuben, Gad, Asher, Zebulun, Dan, and Naphtali. And the Levites shall recite to all the people in loud voices the curses and the blessings. There's 2 chapters worth of them. And so this is what they did. They basically said, okay, now we have a land. We've taken some territory, we have a land, we are a people with a place, and now they basically consecrated to God in the place that God had given it to Abraham. You can say that. Abraham. And they read the law to say this is the law of the land. And by the way, you just experienced some blessings and curses. Let's redo it again, because God said, if you do what this, you will be blessed. All the people standing over here testify. If you don't do it, all these curses will come upon you. And all these people on this side are testifying to it. And so this is a big ceremony that basically says, this is our land. This is our place. We are now in the land. Do they have it? No. Matter of fact, in Joshua's eyes, they still don't have it. But they now are a people with a place. Okay? land of their own. A couple things we learned from the lessons today, and yes, last week, is this. God will bless those who are devoted to Him first. A lot of times when we talk about giving, we always say, well, I'll let you know, whatever. God said, give to me first, let Him take care of the rest, right? Too many times as men, we're kind of not real comfortable with that. He demands He gets the first fruits. That's part of the law. He demands it. And we find that when He went into the land and gave them the territory and everything, He demanded first. But after that, the Bible says He blessed them. It was all theirs. He gave them all the different things. He gave them a land that they did not earn, fields and produce that they did not plant, houses they didn't build. He blessed them in ways unbelievable. And we need to remember that in our lives today. This is all brings to a point that says God always delivers as He's promised. And think about that. That sounds great, except it's a double-edged sword. Because He promises that if you do what He says, great things are going to happen. But He also promises that if you don't do what He says, some bad things are going to happen. So we need to remember that He always delivers, no matter what. The question really is up to us as to which side we're going to be on. We're going to be on the side that chooses to obey Him or not. We can even look back at the first attempt to take the land. Under the 12 spies. Failed attempt. They lived in misery and died in a desert because they made a choice instead of doing what God said and allowing Him to deliver as He promised. And when they refused, He gave them exactly what they asked for. Fine. Because they said, it would be better if we just died here. Because we can't go defeat those guys, so it would be better if we were just dead. Woe is me. He said, okay, fine, got it. Spent 40 years in misery. On the other hand, the next group, their children comes up and says, I'm going to take you in and deliver you into this land. They said, okay, let's do it. He says, okay, here it is. And they got it. It's a difference. So we need to consider that God will always do what He promises. The question is, what's our part going to be in that? All right, I talked too much, I know. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? Okay, next week we're going to take a look at the next chapter, which is about the Gibeonites.